So welcome to our very-free webinar about new contracts, and today we have Alan Tadayon that will present the work from his PhD. So please, Alan, now you can present yourself and the presentation that you will give us today.
Thank you so much for a nice introduction. So my name is Alan Tadayon, and I recently finished my PhD at the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at NTNU. My topic for my PhD was a new look towards relational project delivery model, and it is what today we were going to talk about. As you can imagine, almost 3.5 years of research can't be presented in 1 hour. So I try to make this presentation an abstract of my study and somehow direct you and show you what is included in my research. So if you want to know more about things, my dissertation is available through NTNU website and also the library, and if you just Google my name, you can find out my publications and my ResearchGate webpage that leads you to more information about the findings of this study. In today's webinar, I will have a simple introduction about different project model and project model evolution. Then we talk about relational project delivery model and how we can adopt it to our project. And in this case, we talk about the 39 project. So I will proceed directly to presentation, and I will talk more during the slides. We know that contract strategies and project delivery model has passed a long way in recent years. Not many years ago, we have just traditional models that each parties care about their own results without the mindset of what is best for a project. So if something goes wrong with one party, for example, contractor, the other party is designer or consultant, doesn't care, and that was what we called the adversarial environment and traditional environment. But now we know that project getting more complex, more uncertain, and we need to collaborate, we need to sit together to solve the problem. We need that this complexity and this uncertainty can't be handled with just one party. We need more knowledge, we need more competence to sit at the table. When we are sitting at the table, we might have different ideas, we might have different solution, or even different attitude, but it's about collaboration. We know that more people, more knowledge, and we can find more innovative solution for big complex project. And nowadays we know that stakeholders also have a good knowledge, have a better knowledge. They know what exactly they need, they know what exactly they want. So addressing their needs also is challenging. That's why we need a level of collaboration. We need to solve the problem jointly and not just by one party. And the problems nowadays with construction projects especially, with this complexity are more challenging. So it is always good to have this level of collaboration, a proper level of collaboration to address those needs and problems. To understand what I mean about relational and transactional model, I will give you some classification, some simple watershed definition about transactional and relational model. So when we're talking about transactional form, we actually mean an arm's-length relationship between the client or the owner of the project and the delivery team, the team who going to build the project. In these models, it's like traditional design bid build, which you have the design ready and you just through a bidding process you contract with the contractor to build your design. So you actually have a design ready, give it to some party to build it. In this kind of transactional model, the risk is always shifted from the owner to delivery team. So the owner doesn't want to carry any risk, but we know that it is not true. The owner always carries the risk. I will talk about it more later. And in relational form, which is our focus of this presentation and my PhD study, is actually when client and delivery team collaborates either formally through type of contract, regulated contract, or informally through some arrangement to deliver the project. In this kind of model, relational model, the risk is always shared between parties. Maybe it's not 50-50%, but it's actually design how we share the risk through delivery model. But the important point here is that the risk is shared. It is not carried by one party. Also, the governance of this kind of model, the governance arrangement is supporting this collaboration. So everybody aim to make this collaboration work. So this is the simple definition of transactional and relational. In that direction, another classification of contract model or delivery model is good to be mentioned here. This is inspired by a recent PMI book about collaborative frameworks and agreements. So in this classification, we classified the contract model into 3 groups. We classified it into segregated form, integrated form, and collective form. In segregated form, as it's clear from the name, these forms are intended to have a separated design and delivery or construction process. So as I talked in last slide, the design bid build is one of the very well-known model in this group, and we know that especially in Norway we have lots of design bid build. So the client have the design ready through a designer or through in-house design, and then through a bidding process we assign the construction job to a builder or contractor. So again, as I talked in this form, the design and delivery process is separated, the risk is transferred to one party, and we call it a traditional environment. The second cluster is integrated form. In integrated form, these models aiming to integrate the design and delivery process. So the design and construct or design build is one of the most well-known model in this form. So the client sign a single contract with a single entity to do the whole job, doing the design and also doing the construction. In this form, the designer trying to transfer the risk of the design to another party, but we know again it is not always the risk transferable, because the client will lose the control over the design and might lose some quality in that term. But the things in integrated form is that the focus is on planning and control, while in collective form the design and delivery process is still integrated, but the focus is on collaboration and coordination. Why? Because collective form, a part of integrating the design and delivery process, try to integrate the design and delivery team. So we want to have a joint organization to deliver the project, and partnering, project partnering or project strategic partnering, as well as alliancing, integrated project delivery model or framework agreement are those well-known models in this collective form. The collective form is the focus of this presentation and also my study. So we go through a couple of these models into details in further slides. Now that we talk about different models, it's good to show you this figure from, again, Derek Walker, the recent publications. And as you see, he clustered these models into 4 groups based on the collaboration. So the first order collaboration, as you see it on the left, has a focus on efficiency, like design and build. We want to deliver a project with the most efficient way. while the second form focused on the fair process and how we deliver it, like PPP, public-private partnership, or in general, boot family and framework agreement. While the last two cluster is having more focus on collaboration, focus on doing the things together. The third one is the focus on the common platform, like integrated supply chain management or IPD. And on the top of the pyramid, we have the focus on committed relationships. So every party in these groups have a commitment to collaborate, and project alliances and program alliances are clustered in this group. Also, we can see when we go from the left to right, we have a higher level of involvement of the contractor earlier in the process, as well as a better or more systematic pain gain share incentive and system, which I will talk about these later as well. So now we know a little bit about relational delivery model, but the most well-known or famous relational delivery model are integrated project delivery model, partnering, and alliances. And each of these models evolve and develop in one corner of the world. So, for example, in North America, they use most IPD for construction project, integrated project delivery model, while in Australia, there is alliancing, and then the Europe, mostly partnering and alliancing. I will go through them one by one. So first, let's go to North America and integrated project delivery model. But what is IPD? As the name shows us, is about integration. But what we want to integrate the people, the system, the business structure, and practice. So everything wants to be integrated to a process. And why is that? We want to collaborate and, harvest the best talent and the insights of all these parties which are involved in this process. But for what reason? We want to optimize the project results. We want to increase the value for the owner, and we want to reduce the waste. So all of these is in order to maximize the efficiency through all the phases of the project, through design, through fabrication, and through construction. So again, to put it short, IPD is integrating all the peoples and system into one process to harvest the best talented and the best things about each parties, to maximize the results and increase the efficiency. There are main principles for IPD. As I listed some of those, the most important one, not all. We know that trust and mutual respect is the essence of collaboration. So we need to have the mutual respect and trust. And no relational delivery model can work without a fair system, without mutual benefits and rewards. So not one party could give all the benefits. We need to collaborate, and as a sense of collaboration, we need to have the process to share these benefits and rewards. Also collaborative innovation and decision making, and of course early involvement of the competence and participant, because we know that as soon as we need to solve a problem, and we need lots of competence, and if they are involved early in the process, for sure we're going to have more innovative solution, and we're going to have the better final result. So early involvement of the key participant and ECI is another principle for IPD. And goal definition, we are different parties want to work together, so we need to define the goals. We need to define what goals we are going to achieve. And also open communication. And the last things which make IPD differentiate from other models is the inclusion of the lean construction tools and BIM. So what makes IPD different from alliancing, for example, is the day-to-day operating system. We have different lean tools like Last Planner or other tools which help us to daily operate our project, and not just use the old project management daily operation systems. But what's going on in Australia? In Australia is project alliances. We know that project alliances born in North and Europe, but it's evolved and developed in Australia. And as again, the name of these models present the meaning most of the time. And again, project alliancing it's about alliance. It's about joint everything, joint contract for a joint responsibility. For joint responsibility for what? For design and construction, for both the process involved in delivering a project. And through this joint responsibility, we need to have a joint organization to share all the positive and negative risk and rewards in the project. So what make alliances unique is this joint organization, which most of the time the actors are not connected to their parent organization anymore. They are employed by the project alliance. They are employed with the new brand. So I saw that in many alliance projects, even they comes up with a new name. They comes up with a T-shirt, and it's try to show that people that you are not connected to your parent organization anymore. Now you are part of this team, and this is promote the win-win situation and the mentality of the best for the project. Again, what are the principles for project alliances? We can divide the principles for project alliances to two forms. The principles related to structural arrangement and also principles related to collaboration. As I talked earlier, alliances is about joint. So when we're talking about the structural arrangement, joint agreements, joint organization, these are the principles related to that one. And also the reasonable sharing the risk and rewards, because it's about everybody believe that they are doing the same things. They have the shared goals, so we need to have a fair sharing risk and reward system as well. And of course, open book. You need to build up the trust, and for build up the trust, we need transparency and open book. And also when we're talking about features and the principles related to the nature of collaboration, one of the important things, of course, is trust and no blame culture. We trust each other. We work in a transparent environment with an open book, and we trust each other and we try to listen to each other. No blame culture. You cannot blame any of parties. This is the project, and all parties are related to this project. So we cannot blame one party or one actors because something goes wrong. So it is win-win or lose-lose situation. And also commitment and collaboration or cooperation are other features related to nature of collaborative environment in alliances. So we know about North America, Australia, and now we go to Europe. Early in my PhD study, I was involved in a research pilot project, which was about mapping the experiences of Northern European country, how they execute their project, which delivery model they use, what are their experience, and what they're going to do in future. It was a project run by 4 professors, 2 associate professors, and me as a PhD candidate. And we traveled through North European countries. We meet people, practitioners, academic people, and try to understand what's going on. So during these travel and these interviews, some findings evolved that I will go through some of them. And if you want to know more about them, there is a paper called Relational Contract Trends, which you can find it in my publication list. So in this study, we find out that there is a trend. There is a trend toward using more relational delivery model. And how we find out this trend is because lots of pilot projects happening in Europe, and different organizations try to gather experience, negative or positive experience about using relational delivery model. So it's actually show that this is a trend. The organization want to increase the number of relational delivery model they're using for project. But also the interesting finding was that there is a random sequence or random base selection. So you cannot find a systematic sequence for choosing one relational delivery model. It's not like that one organization goes and study all these models and find out, for example, Alliance is the best one. No, they just send somebody to a conference, they find out about one model, they come back, they start using it. And there are high variation in different in chosen approach and how mature these approach executed. So maybe they start using one approach and they fail and they assume that this is not the model that they want and they jump to the next one. And also, sorry. Depends on different champion that they send to different place to learn about these models. They mature one models in their organization. For example, in Finland, they don't have any partnering, or to my knowledge, there is no partnering. They just jump to alliancing the next level because they know about alliancing, they tried it, and it works for them, so they use this one. Other things that came to our attention in these trips was, for example, use the effect of the political power. So we know that sometimes political power bend towards some model and promote some model, and on the other hand, sometimes they are against of different models. So it is also interesting things about these findings of this study. But the things that I used mostly from findings of this study was that I figured out that the countries or organization can be grouped in two in terms of their perspective toward relational contract, how they see relational contract, what they get from relational contract. In countries like Sweden and Denmark, relational contract is more about attitude, more about promoting the good attitude of collaboration, more about showing the people that if you collaborate, you can get a better result. While in some countries like UK and Finland or Netherlands, relational contract is about a formal contract regulation, is about binding people to collaborate, binding people to make a common goal and drive all the parties toward this goal. So it is two-form. In some countries, they look at the relational contract as just an arrangement for developing a better attitude, and in other countries, it's like a real contract. So for next part of my study, I use these findings, and I try to study one model related to more attitude than formal contract, and one model related to contract. So I pick up partnering as a model which is more about developing attitude, more about showing that collaboration is good, and another one which is itself is a standalone contract, is alliancing, to study the second kind of perspective, which is look at to relational contract as a contract regulation. So now we pick up partnering and alliancing to the study. So which of these models fits our project? In this case, which model fits E39 project? To understand this question, I need to know what are these models, what are really these models. And as we know, for example, models like partnering doesn't have a solid unified definition. It's everybody has a different perception of partnering. What is partnering? So I need to understand what is this model. So to study this model and to understand how this model works, I need to break them down into their components. I need to know what are inside of these models. So as we know, each delivery model consists of hard elements and soft elements. Hard elements are those elements which are regulated through contract. They have binding system. And early contractual involvement, open book economy, intention agreement, and co-location could be an example of important hard elements. On the other hand, relational or soft elements are those elements which are not regulated through contract or procurement process. And usually they are, not always, but usually they are using to build up a better collaboration and also a better relationship between the actors, like cooperation, commitment, competence, or trust. Sometimes these elements are coincide or supporting each other. For example, hard elements like a startup workshop or hard elements are continuous workshop, helping to more close people together, better developing a better trust, and on the other hand, supporting other elements for achieving what they needed to. So when I figured out about these two component, hard element and soft elements, I needed to have some things tangible. I need to study these components, but soft elements, soft components are not easy to measure. So and can't be used easily for defining one model. You cannot just go and ask people, okay, do you trust your clients? You don't know if you get the 100% correct answer. So I picked up the hard elements and used it to proceed with my study. First, we go through partnering. So for partnering, I targeted Norwegian construction project, and I gone through 44 projects to investigate how these elements are presented. But first, we need to have these elements. I needed to have the list of these hard elements. Partnering has been subject of a study in NTNU for more than 2 decades. So I start with the initial list, which we develop, or not me, other people developed in NTNU, and I did more literature study, and through those case study and interviews with the practitioners, we tried to make a comprehensive list, and we ended up with 29 hard elements, which I assume that it is the most comprehensive list available so far. You see that there are lots of names here, and maybe you are familiar with some of those and maybe not, but you can just go through my dissertation or my publication to understand what are each of these individual elements and what are the purpose of adopting those. So when I develop this list, now I need to know how it goes into practice. So to study partnering in practice, as I said, 44 case projects were investigated, how they run the partnering, and we've done lots of interview with my master's students as a collaborative team to gather more or collect more data. During these studies, we investigate how partnering is implemented, and also as part of interview, we gave the list to the respondent and asked them to cross those elements which were presented in their project. So the result was very interesting. And the first things that come to my mind to tell you is that no single element was presented in all projects. As you see in this list, the most repeated element was a startup workshop in just 37 projects. So it means out of 44 projects, 37. So we cannot find even single elements in all projects that show how many variation of partnering we have. And all of them labeled partnering, and you cannot just come and say, okay, this is not partnering. For example, Prof. Eriksson in Sweden comes up with the idea of core element and optional elements to define the partnering. So he comes up with some core elements that if you want to have partnering, you need to have these core elements. But if you apply those core elements to my findings, just 6 of these projects can be called partnering. So I don't think that that's true. These projects might be partnering, and not just only because they don't have all the core elements, we can just say, no, they are not partnering. And another findings, or another interesting findings about these interview results was, as a part of that, we tried to ask responded to prioritize the hard elements in terms of their importance. So those which are more important get a lower score, and on the other side, those which are lower importance goes at the bottom of the list. And again, interesting finding was there is a very big mismatch between what's happening in practice and what the people believe. For example, elements like early contractor involvement are presented in 80% of the project, but when we ask them, maybe in the prioritization, it's in the middle of the in mid-importance level. So as we see, it is very how can I tell it? It's people practitioners don't know what is partnering, and also there is a mismatch between academic people as well. So, but maybe we don't need to define the partnering through presence of those elements, and the partnering could be called as arrangement to develop a better collaboration with the still using part of regulated contract on the backside. I will explain it later in the conceptual model. The next model was alliances, and for the alliances, it wasn't because it's a relatively new project delivery model. It was not presented any list of hard elements, so we started from scratch. I've done literature reviews in collaboration with master students, and we comes up with a long list of hard elements. Then we studied each pieces again more and more, and we try to merge those elements which are relevant, and those elements which can't be considered as hard elements are omitted from the list. And also we try to make apparent elements, and those bullet elements they are connected to that parent element. For example, risk and reward regime. We can have risk, pain and gain share elements, and no latent condition clause under that. So after we done with this list, again, like partnering, we start to study alliances in practice. For doing that, I traveled to Australia with one of my master's students, and we studied the forwarding project through interviews and case study. And as you see, it was very interesting about alliances because all the elements were presented in all the project. This will indicate that the definition of Australian alliance project is very solid, and people have the same perception of what is alliancing. But maybe it's worth to mention another finding is that we try to understand which of these elements are unique to alliances, and we asked our respondents to cross-mark those elements that they think they are unique to alliances. But the thing is, we got lots of elements that people believe it's unique, but for me that I studied other models like partnering, IPD, and partnering, delivery partnering, and other models, I knew that these elements are presented in other models as well. So I assumed that because those practitioners, maybe they didn't have any experience with other models, they thought that this is just alliance elements. So the point is, none of these elements can be called unique to alliances, and other models can adopt them. But now that I know about alliancing, partnering, hard elements, and how they work, we need to find how we can adopt these elements or relational project delivery model to our project. We don't want to just go to a random decision-making process and comes up with whatever come to our mind first. We need to have a systematic, principled process to adopt a delivery model. So in the last part of my PhD, I developed a conceptual model for adopting hard elements of relational model, or in particular different relational model, which I'm going through these models individual parts. The first, or the outcome of this model, is project delivery model itself. So the project delivery model, this is the structural elements, or the important structural elements of the project delivery model. Project delivery model is the setting that combine these elements together. We need to know our organization form, which kind of organization form and responsibility we are having in our project. Also, we need to have the structure and agreement format. The work breakdown structure, break down the project to manageable pieces, and also in that terms, we need to have the cost breakdown structure and also responsibility breakdown structure. I just go through very fast and quick through some of these elements, and you can read more about them in my dissertation because I'm going to run out of time. Form of a specification, we need to know what are the specification of the project that we are going to deliver, what are the specification of our deliverable, what we want to deliver, and also the procurement format, what are the procurement format we are going to use. Partnering could be one of the procurement formats, or design build. Also in agreement format, we need to know about our contract format. All of these could be decided in the project delivery model. Lots of organizations have a standard contract format for their project. For each project, we need to know about conflict resolution mechanism that we are going to use. And if there is any dispute comes up, also how we going to share the risk, and what is the payment format. Is it fixed price, cost reimbursement, or other form of payment? So this figure is the outcome of this model. So after we go through the first few steps, we need to end up with this project delivery model. The second piece of the model is alternative approach. What are the alternative approach we have for having our project delivery model? Through those findings of alliance and partnering, comes up with three different alternatives. So I usually use the metaphor of cooking book to explain this, which I'm going to do here is the same. So the first one is selecting a project delivery model, a set recipe. So sometimes you just pick up one well-known famous project delivery model, like alliances. You pick up Australian alliances and you have a set recipe. As we saw, all the elements were presented in alliance projects. So it's easy to understand what is alliancing. It's easy to understand what are the hard elements which needs to be regulated into contract. And there are many recipes for how to execute alliance. So we just select one well-known project delivery model and then assign it, adopt it in our project, and deliver the project. The second alternative is customizing a project delivery model, or adding or deleting some of these hard elements. In what base? Based on your need, based on your, if you use that metaphor, based on your diet, you need more salt. You need to have a more sweet recipe. So you add those elements which you know serve your needs. So you pick up one of the well-known project delivery model, you delete those elements that you don't want them, and you add some of the elements you want. As an example, lots of project managers, for example, are not comfortable with open book economy, so they can just delete open book economy, although I believe open book economy is one of the essences of the relational delivery model. The example of customized project delivery model is how Finnish people use alliances. In Finland, the Finnish authorities try to adopt alliancing with one differences. They learn about integrated project delivery model and lean construction delivery, and they know that they can learn from lean delivery. So they pick up alliancing and they adopted lean tools from lean construction delivery to their alliances. So now they have finished alliances. And this is very interesting because we know that in alliance we still use the old-fashioned day-to-day management operating system. But in lean construction and lean delivery, we use lean tools, we use last planner, we use lots of lean construction tools to eliminate the waste. And this is what we can see in Finland. So an example of customized project delivery model is alliancing in Finland. And the last alternative approach is developing a project delivery model from the scratch. We need a shopping list for this one. And what I mean by that, we know that each project is started with a need or a problem to solve, a need to be addressed or a problem to be solved. So these needs and problems, when you know them, and you know these list of hard elements, and you know what is the purpose of each hard elements and how they can serve your needs, so you can pick up your shopping list and just pick those elements that you think fitted your situation, fitted your organization, and fitted your needs, and develop your project delivery model from the scratch. The name doesn't matter. You need to have the system that serve your need. So example of this delivery model is different variation of partnering. We saw that we have many different variation of partnering in just Norwegian construction projects. So this is an example of developing a project delivery model based on our needs. I can't say how it works, but you know what you need, you know what is your organization, what is the characteristic of your organization and project, and when you have those elements and you know the purpose of those elements, you can make a situational or a standard project delivery model from the scratch for your project. The next pieces of the model is the selection process. There are many different algorithms, model, quantitative, qualitative, to select one project delivery model or find out the relevant and irrelevant solutions. Sorry. So you can find many algorithms and models for selecting a delivery model, but all of these model and methods can be fall into three groups: external constellation, systematic process, and judgmental selection. In external constellation, when we have lack of knowledge and expertise and competence in our organization, we use consultants and constellation from outside of the organization. So we ask them to evaluate our situation and our project and tell us what is the best delivery model fitted our situation. Or systematic process is the least subjective method to use, and we can use quantitative or qualitative ready framework or process to find out what are the relevant and irrelevant solutions, like different questionnaires and different framework or matrix which ask you some or you input some data and you get like artificial intelligence or decision-making systems. And the last one is the judgmental selection. We use the past experience and in-house knowledge and expertise and intuition to select what is the best for our project. So every model and algorithm you find will fall into one of these groups, and each of these groups might work in their situation if they practice correctly. Our situation. So prior to making that decision, we need a strategy. We need an implementation strategy which show us or direct us through this selection process. To develop this implementation strategy, we need input. We need to know about the project. So we need project characteristic. The project characteristic itself can show us or can help us to understand if relational project delivery model are a valid option or not. In part of my thesis, I developed a chapter which study and investigate those characteristics which in general show us or help us to understand if relational delivery model is a valid option or not. We are just talking about valid option. We don't talk about which one is the best and how to select it. So it's about complexity and uncertainty, the high level of uncertainty and complexity, or time pressure, or other factors. So for developing implementation strategy, we need inputs. One of these inputs is project characteristic itself. Project characteristic could be, again, complexity of the project, size of the project, and lots of characteristics come with the project proposal, like the time of delivery, the quality or standards we needed, and etc. The other input is the owner objective. Owner of the project is the party that pay for the project, the party that decide when the project needs to be delivered. So the objective of the owner and the things that owner needs is the input for implementation strategy. It's what implementation strategy is based on that. And also the past experience and knowledge of the decision makers from other delivery models could be work as an input for developing implementation strategy. So as you see, these inputs are arrow to implementation strategy, but this development will be affected by other factors as well, internal factors and external factors. Internal factors are those factors which have their roots inside the organization, like owner characteristic. The things is, in literature, usually they say for when you want to select a project delivery model, you need to consider the client or owner characteristic, market characteristic, and project characteristic. But this model differentiates between owner objective and owner characteristic. And I believe that these are two different things. Owner characteristic are things about the owner organization, for example, the financial ability, the competence, the availability of the human resource, while owner objective is about what the owner wants, what is the goals of the owner. So this implementation strategy will affected by owner characteristic as well, the level of competence, the level of finance situation, and also organization policy. Some organizations have policies toward one model or using some elements or not using elements. Again, I make an example of the open book economy, which I know some organizations are not comfortable with that. And the last element is the project phase and ECI consideration. The project phase is important because we need to know in which phase of the project we procure the contractor or designer, because some models are considered too late in some phases. For example, licensing needs to be decided early in the project. When you have your design ready, it doesn't work to have alliances. And also ECI consideration, because early involvement of the competence and contractor is the skeleton of the relational delivery model. And we know that there are many ways to involve the competence and contractor. In one of our publications, we identify more than 20 models and 20 methods for applying and achieving early contractor involvement. So maybe if we are, I don't know, in some phases that, for example, licensing doesn't work, still we can make a collaboration and achieve early contractor involvement with other method and other procedure. On the other hand, external factors are the factors that affect our strategy from outside of the organization, like regulation influence. We know that there are many regulations. As an example, in Europe, we have EU public procurement regulation that affect the choice of delivery model. So we cannot use alliancing as the way they use it in Australia, or, for example, IPD the way they use it in US, because EU regulation policies affect our choice. The political influence, as I mentioned earlier, have a great effect on different strategies. Like when I was in Australia, I experienced that in a period of time, the political forces didn't want to let the public procurement using alliances. So suddenly the number of project alliances goes down maybe 60–70%. Of course, they find a solution, they just change the name, but what I mean here, the political influence has a great impact on our strategy. And the last one is the market characteristic, which greatly influence the strategy. We need to know what is the situation of our market. Do we have the competence? Do we have enough? For example, for E39, it's a huge project, and I'm not sure if we have the competence, if we have the available contractor and technology. So maybe we need to bring announce it worldwide to have more competence, more people coming. So market characteristics have great influence on our implementation strategy. So the last slide is how this model works. I present here the model in details. We have started with the project delivery model, which is the outcome of this model, and is a setting to combine all the structural elements for project delivery model. The alternative approach, which was 3 alternative approach, a set recipe or selecting a well-known project delivery model like licensing, a customized project delivery model like what they done in Finland, adopt licensing and integrate some lean tools and lean construction delivery tools to that to comes up with the finished licensing, and also developing a project delivery model from the scratch, like different variation of partnering, and using a shopping list to pick up those elements which are relevant to our project. And the selection process, as I explained, external constellation, systematic process, and judgmental selection. And we can see the implementation strategy here. So this model doesn't actually discuss which project delivery model is better and which one fitted better, but it's talk about prioritization, and it's talk about systematic process and what elements need to be considered for making this decision. For developing and how this model work, we need to develop an implementation strategy first. This development could be, as you see with the dash arrows, could be internally by in-house expertise and knowledge, or could be done by external cancellation. We give them the information they need, the project characteristics, the organization policies, the goals that the owners have, and they can come up with other needed material, like they do the market characteristic analysis and checking the external regulation and policies, and comes up with the list of hard elements or relevant and irrelevant solutions for a project. So when this implementation strategy is ready, again, one of these selection process could be adopted to pick up one of these alternative solutions to have the final outcome. I need to mention here as well, there are materials behind this model. For example, as I explained, the ECI Constellation, we have a paper with more than 20 different ECI models and method to apply. And my colleague Paul has done a great research on ECI, which is available as well, and he's also financed by Statens vegvesen and work for Statens vegvesen, so those publications can be used as well. Project phase, there is another framework to show which model and project delivery model is relevant in which phases. That one also is available in my PhD dissertation, and those factors that we need, those selection criteria that we need to consider, like owner characteristic, project characteristic, are also published, and there are full lists available online. So my point is there are material behind this model which can be used. I think I'm done with my presentation and ready for any questions.
Sure. Feel free to ask questions, anyone. I have some questions that I would like to ask, but I can start with one. When customizing a project delivery model, is it common to do it in a competitive dialogue phase?
That's a very good question. So I believe that customizing a project delivery model is based on the need and the strategy we develop early in the project. When we're talking about competitive dialogue, part of this competitive dialogue is also included in developing or promoting our strategy. So there is always time for customizing our delivery model, even in different phases of the project, because customizing is about adopting extra elements or deleting some of the elements from the contract, formally or informally. So I believe even in the execution of the project, there is still time to maneuver and change this that we needed to add. For example, adding more workshops, adding more meetings, risk assessment meetings, and these kind of things can be added even during the execution of the project. So this customization, of course, as early as possible we do it. It's much better, but I believe it's possible through the life cycle of the project. And we need to differentiate between customization for selecting or developing a project delivery model as a start, or in the project phases, different project phases. So I believe it's possible and could be done.
Yeah, so you can actually customize the project delivery model in several phases throughout the project.
Yes, I believe so. And when you mention about competitive dialogue, I have a little bit of knowledge of competitive dialogue, but I know again Paulos has a great knowledge of competitive dialogue. It was part of his research in PhD, and I'm sure he can answer that question as well. Yes. Just for those people who want to know more about competitive dialogue.
And I will take time to one more question about relational contracts. Are there a trending of the size of the contracts? Are they small, big? What is the trending?
Yeah, the things about relational contract, as I said, this is a huge topic, and you can see it's 300 pages of dissertation and just only include part of my publications. So I missed that part to put it in my presentation about when we need to adopt a relational delivery model, because relational delivery model are not fitted for any project, because it needs a huge it's costly delivery model, because you need to have lots of preparation and contractor selection, and it costs a lot. So maybe for a straightforward, a small size project, which we know that there is no challenge in design and structure of the project, it doesn't fit or it doesn't make sense to use relational delivery model. So we need to have some characteristic for the project to make relational delivery model a valid option, as a fair level of uncertainty and complexity, of course, project size. But the thing is about project size, when we're talking about project size, usually in construction industry, we're talking about how much cost does this project has, or the duration of the project. But these two things doesn't mean this project is complex. Maybe we have making a simple road, but it's a huge cost because it's a long road, 100-kilometer road. So in that scenarios, when the project is simple, it's not complex, it's not uncertain, the design is straightforward, but still it's, in terms of size and cost, is a huge project. Still, maybe we don't need relational delivery model. But on the other hand, when I'm saying it doesn't need relational delivery model, I mean pure relational delivery model, like pure partnering or pure alliancing. But we know that we have a big list of elements that help us to deliver a better project, getting a better outcome. So still we can go with traditional contract for those projects, a straightforward project, and adopt some of these elements which are helpful in any project. Because we know, for example, we know that all successful construction projects, they have a level of collaboration. We know collaboration is always good. We know that more meeting means more exchanging ideas, and we know that trust is presented in most of successful projects. So adopting some of those elements to any project, even traditional environments, it's still useful. We can have them as an arrangement extra to the contract and not with a binding, but still adopt them and harvest the benefits.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?